Okay, so welcome. This is not a video that I planned on making initially. It's not something that um, I thought I would be speaking to in this series of videos on the decolonization of naturopathic medicine and the liberation of Black and Indigenous voices and ways of knowing and cosmologies. But I found myself making this video, and it's a tribute video to two of the elders and teachers and medicine men who have deeply informed the content and videos so far that I've created, and you've heard me speak of them and speak to them in their work. And they both passed away just last week. And so I'll bring up their images here. And I think it's just that much more prevalent and relevant that we speak of them and their work, and why we're doing this work in naturopathic medicine to decolonize our medicine. So I just wanted to bring up their images here. Anishinaabe Elder Dave Courchene from the Sag King First Nation, Manitoba. He's the founder of the Turtle Lodge that some of you heard me speak about my journey this summer back to Lake Winnipeg, where I grew up, and to Turtle Lodge, and how meaningful that journey was for me. And Elder Dave passed on to the spirit world on December 8th, 2021. And I'll speak in a moment a bit more to why his work has been so powerful and influential for me, and what I think he has also to bring to the profession and the world, really. And then Malidoma. So a day after finding out about Dave passing, I got news that West African shaman, medicine man, diviner, teacher, Malidoma completed his final initiation into spirit world. And he's just been coming across his work and teachings was like coming home, to my West African roots and knowledge systems, and everything just started to make sense. Like, oh, this is the knowledge I've been carrying and where it comes from and where it belongs. It finally landed home. And the contours of everything that I was thinking and feeling and trying to transform into form all of a sudden made sense. So yeah, Malidoma has a very special place in my heart and in this work, and again has so much to offer to us as a profession in understanding the roots of naturopathic medicine, and how healing happens even. So this short video is essentially, like a tribute to these two men and their work, but it's not without calling in the profession also, and to look at ourselves. So I'm going to begin with Elder Dave Courchene, and he's been an inspiration in my coming to know what I've been seeing and missing, and helping to confirm for me the gift and purpose I carry into this lifetime, with others coming from all four directions, coming together to light the flame of the eighth fire. So he's the eighth fire documentary. I'll show you a clip in a moment. Yeah, again, just one of those experiences where you watch something and you're just like, every moment of it is your soul speaking to you, saying yes. And the eighth fire prophecy, it states that there would be a time when humanity would come to a fork in the road, and one path, one way would lead to continued materialism and destruction of the earth and all of her beings, and the other path would be a spiritual path of the heart towards peace and harmony, and that path would be led by indigenous peoples, but that people from all four directions of the world would come together to walk this path and light the eighth fire, which would signify this new way forward for humanity and the earth. So I'm going to show a short clip from this documentary that tells of a really powerful story that that Dave went through, and it offers an incredibly powerful metaphor, but it's more than metaphor, it's literal as well, literal and metaphorical story that he's telling here that yeah, I just think is really powerful. So we're going to show this piece and build from there.
Your ancestors did not intellectualize in their mind who the Creator was. Our people felt inside the love of this great spirit, and they felt and experienced that love from the land. All the teachings that we have as a people are all a reflection of the importance of the spirit of the human being. The ceremonies we do, the dances, the teachings is all a reflection of acknowledging the spiritual reality of our existence. The spirit, the spirit, the spirit. And there is a spirit in you, there is a spirit in me, there is a spirit in a tree, there is a spirit in a bird, there is a spirit in an animal. That is how we're able to have such an easy understanding of our connection to the land and to nature, because everything that is alive has a spirit. And to our people, that spirit is a part of what we refer to as the greatness of the great spirit, that the great spirit has put a part of its spirit and its being in everything that is alive. As indigenous people, we've tried to reflect that spirit of giving and that spirit of sharing. In this place that we call America, we have given, we have shared. Everything that was ever lent to us by the Creator, we have shared it. And today we live in this country as the poorest of the poor. And yet we have been the most giving. We have been the most sharing people. That cannot be denied, because history speaks for itself. But now we come forward as a people, and we come forward to share the greatest gift that we could ever share with the rest of humanity. And what we are about to share is our heart now, the deepness of our heart that carries the knowledge and the wisdom that we have as a people, in terms of our spiritual relationship that we have with this high power of spirit that we call the Creator, and why we love the land so much, why the land means everything to us.
In the name of our organization and of the youth of all the Americas, I have the honor respectfully to request His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh, to officially declare the inauguration of the 5th Pan American Games.
I remember as a young boy being asked to carry the Olympic flame that came from Mexico. And it landed in Minneapolis, and there was 10 of us that were chosen to, given the honor to carry the Olympic flame into the city of Winnipeg to light the beginning of the Pan American Games here in Manitoba. At that time, I had no understanding of the significance of carrying that fire. All I knew is that I was having a really good time. Being off the reserve for the first time, living in a fancy hotel and riding in 3 white convertibles, you know, being wined and dined like a way that I've never been experienced in my life. You know, I experienced something that, you know, I've always held in my memory as, you know, a very enjoyable time. But the flame itself, I didn't realize that it would play a big part in my life.
And now, on behalf of the Queen, who sends you all her very best wishes, I have the great pleasure and honor to declare the 5th Pan American Games open.
I was the runner that was selected to, you know, to carry that flame into the stadium. And I remember the day really clearly. It was really pouring rain. And I don't know if that reflected or, you know, became a metaphor of what was about to happen.
It's a good example of just how hard it's raining at this point.
The Spirit was, you know, knew that we were not going to complete our journey the way that we had hoped that we were going to complete it. I came to the entrance of the stadium with the flame, only to have someone come and take it from my hand and take off with it and run around the stadium and light the cauldron of, you know, in the stadium. After we had run 500 miles, we were not given the honor to go and light it. And it, of course, it was a non-Aboriginal, you know, that came to take the flame. And I look back and I saw that as a metaphor of what was happening to our people in that time in the 60s, that we were totally marginalized in society, that we were never really considered, you know, and recognized as a people that could, you know, that could have and make equal contribution. It wasn't until later on that I went to the elders, you know, to seek their mentorship and their direction and to begin my training, my spiritual training, you know, to understand more of the deepness of our culture and who we are as a people. I went to the elders and spent a lot of time with the elders, you know, to try to understand basically who I was. I didn't really understand my own purpose in life. I didn't really have a vision, you know, a meaning, and yet I was at that stage that I wanted to learn more about myself. I was very unhappy with the conditions that we were living in as a people. I was angry, you know, for what I believed was done to our people, you know, so I had all of these things inside. And I always remember the grandmother, you know, that mentored me in the beginning. She says, you know, the first thing we got to do is get rid of your anger. You can't go walking around like that. You're going to hurt somebody, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to get sick. You got to get rid of it. So of course, what they did is they put me through ceremony, like the sweat lodge, Sundance. They put me through all of that. And then I would go to the elders and say, I still don't know what I'm supposed to do. What am I supposed to do? There's got to be something. You know, we can't continue to live like this as a people, to be oppressed and live this constant environment of poverty with all the symptoms that come with that poverty. You know, the addictions, the violence. I said, there's got to be an answer. So what is it? And I didn't really at that time really care about any other people. All I said, I want an answer for my people. I don't care about anybody else. But of course, what happened was that vision came, but it included everybody. I look back in the years, and I believe that at that time, and when I was that age, I know that I was carrying the spirit of our ancestors.
So I'm just going to pause it there, and but please return to that documentary, The Eighth Fire by Turtle Lodge. You know, he goes on to talk about the eighth fire prophecy that then came to him that, yes, included everybody, all four directions of the world coming together to light that eighth fire, that new way forward. And we'll circle back to that in a moment. I want to now pay tribute to Malidoma Some, West African shaman, medicine man, carrier of the knowledge of his peoples. And one of the most significant, I think, transfers of wisdom and knowledge that Malidoma has brought to me is the understanding of ritual. And you hear Dave Courchene speak to that, the importance of those ceremonies and the sweat lodges and the rituals that were then done when he was attempting to find his path and calling and gift in the world. Why am I here? And what can I do for my people? And he needed to go through a series of ritual and healing and vision quests to discover that. And Malidoma Some speaks of the same in his Dagara culture, going through initiation rituals and radical rituals. He speaks of, but the importance of that, of ritual, but also ritual in connection to community and healing. And you know, when he describes these radical rituals that the community comes together to create, they're very different from what we might think of just as a very repetitive kind of ritual, as something that you just do over and over again. He talks more about the spontaneity that happens of the gestures and sounds and cadence and rhythms and the drums and the movements that are shifting the participants into altered states of consciousness and self-organizing with others and nature and the spaces in between in the unseen world, to invite and invoke that spirit to come in and to create space that is sacred enough for transformation to happen. And you know, he weaves this importance of the ritual with community, with healing in such a powerful way that it makes you really realize what we're missing here in the West in terms of those levels of healing and medicine that, that we've lost. And I'll just read a couple pages from his book, The Healing Wisdom of Africa. This is the second book I read of his, the first of Spirit and Water, which I highly recommend. That tells the story of his initiation into the West African healing traditions that came after having been taken at the age of 4 to a missionary French missionary school, boarding school, not unlike the residential schools here in Canada. So the French colonizers of West Africa had abducted a number of children from their homes and put them in these missionary schools. And at the age of 4, he was there and stripped of his indigenous knowledge, lost his language, and ways of knowing, and assimilated into the colonial European knowledge systems. And he speaks of coming back to his Dagara village at the age of 20 and being reinitiated into his knowledge. So that's in the first book. And then he writes this book to go deeper into the healing wisdom of Africa, finding life purpose through nature, ritual, and community. And so the very first chapter, he begins He says, what the indigenous world offers to the modern world centers around the understanding of the concepts of healing, ritual, and community. Indigenous communities have since time immemorial focused their lives and their existence on these issues. Healing is central because it was learned very early that human beings are vulnerable to physiological and biological breakdown, and that this general instability touches all aspects of their existence. They have also learned that the natural environment in which they live is made up of subtle, invisible things that, if manipulated in certain ways, can affect the conditions that they intend to heal. Ritual is the technology that allows the manipulation of these subtle energies. And community is important because there is an understanding that human beings are collectively oriented. The general health and well-being of an individual are connected to a community and are not something that can be maintained alone or in a vacuum. Healing, ritual, and community, these three elements are vitally linked. And fast forwarding a bit in this chapter, he comes back to ritual, community, and healing. He says these three are so intertwined in the indigenous world that to speak of one of them is to speak of them all. Ritual, communally designed, helps the individual remember his or her purpose, and such remembering brings healing both to the individual and the community. The community exists in part to safeguard the purpose of each person within and to awaken the memory of that purpose by recognizing the unique gifts each individual brings to this world. Healing comes when the individual remembers his or her identity, the purpose chosen in the world of ancestral wisdom, and reconnects that with the world of spirits. Human beings long for connection, and our sense of usefulness derives from the feelings of connectedness. When we are not connected to our own purpose, to the community around us, to our spiritual wisdom, we're not able to live and act with authentic effectiveness. Or when we are connected to these aspects, we are able to live and act with authentic effectiveness. In order for ritual to manifest its full power, it must be connected to the world of nature. And to this topic we now turn. To attend to the world of spirit for indigenous peoples is to attend to the geography in which you find yourself. We must try, therefore, to understand the indigenous experiences of nature. And the next chapter is titled The Healing Power of Nature. Nature is the foundation of indigenous life. Without nature, concepts of community, purpose, and healing would be meaningless. The idea of a person born with a purpose that needs to be supported by an active community presence, and the idea of working with subtle energies for balance and healing would be only grandiose notions in the absence of nature as the playground, as the school where the children can play and study. Our relationship to the natural world and its natural laws determines whether or not we are healed. Nature, therefore, is the foundation of healing, and the type of nature that surrounds a community at the time of doing a ritual determines the type of ritual that are appropriate and the contents of those rituals. We are talking about a way of dealing with an energetic world and energetic issues that borrows from what already exists, not what has been invented, manufactured, or created by humans to satisfy some material purpose. In other words, every tree, plant, hill, mountain, rock, and each thing that was here before us emanates or vibrates a subtle energy and has healing power, whether we know it or not. So if something in us must change, spending time in nature provides a good beginning. This means that within nature, within the natural world, are all of the materials and tenets needed for healing human beings. Nature is the textbook for those who care to study it, and the storehouse of remedies for human ills. And he goes on to explain those remedies and how healing happens in the indigenous worlds of his traditions and geography. And I share all this also to lead me into why I've been working so tirelessly on issues of racism and colonization in our profession of naturopathic medicine, and the need to decolonize naturopathic medicine. And when I initially wrote that sentence, working tirelessly, I stopped and actually was like, you know what? Actually, I'm tired. No, I'm not working tirelessly. I'm actually really tired doing this work. There's I feel very little true investment and recognition of the work. And so that gets hard. I'm going to share something that I remembered reading not long after George Floyd was murdered and our profession began looking within at issues of systemic racism in our profession. And so there was this, often as there is after a major event or catastrophe in social inequality or environmental injustice, there's a big event and people rise up and the social media blows up and the profession starts saying, what do we do? And starts putting out anti-racism statements and a lot of attention is given to it. And then often as the case is, that fades out over time. But I remember in that initial peak of the attention being there, our profession, we were coming together with discussion panels and trying to look at these issues of racism. And I was on one of those panels and I remember I just wanted to do a little background research and I decided I was going to look up how the Canadian Association of Naturopathic Doctors describes the history of naturopathic medicine, because I remember being in school, learning the history and feeling, I feel like some of the story is missing here. And and so I went to the website, the Canadian Association of Naturopathic Doctors, and they have a page on the history of naturopathic medicine. And the first paragraph I read said, quote, Hippocrates, a Greek physician who lived 2,400 years ago, first formulated the concept of, in quotes, the healing power of nature. This concept has long been at the core of medicine around the world and remains one of the central principles of naturopathic medicine. In North America, naturopathic medicine traces its origins to Dr. Benedict Lust. End quote, Dr. Benedict Lust, a German-born doctor of nature cure. And so we see this one white man who came up with this idea of the healing power of nature, and this other one white man who then brought it to North America. And I will say that this page no longer exists on the Canadian Association of Naturopathic Doctors website. I did bring this up as an issue in the panel discussion. I'm sure many others have been looking at the issues of the history of naturopathic medicine for a while, and I'm sure word got around and they've realized we need to rewrite our history. So thank you for taking that down. I want to acknowledge that. And we need to repopulate that page, because right now it just says page no longer exists and we have no history. It's a good place to start, though, I think. And now we need to go to the people who actually carry the knowledge of the true histories and rewrite that page. But yeah, this concept, is just so prominent. The one white man coming up with something, and the one white man bringing it to the world. And I think, obviously, Hippocrates is not the first to formulate the concept of healing power of nature and using nature as medicine. And as we've just listened to those beautiful compilations and descriptions from Dave Courchene and Malidoma of the power of nature for healing, this is a concept that is indigenous to everywhere, that there have been people born to the land as far back as people were first born to the land. The indigenous peoples have always been in connection with the healing power of nature and utilizing that power respectfully and in reciprocity to maintain health. So a more appropriate description of that paragraph would be that, Hippocrates, given his position of power at the time, he's often referred to as the father of medicine. He popularized this notion of the healing power of nature in his spheres of influence. And then given the continued domination and bias of Eurocentric culture towards Greek and Roman and Eurocentric histories, we only hear one story surviving over these 2,000 or so years of this one white man being the first to formulate this concept. Not denying that he formulated this concept and that there are not those indigenous roots to Europe. Of course, the indigenous peoples of Europe also formulated this concept, but the histories have been so narrow that it's only that one story that we hear, and we're not hearing that this is actually an indigenous way of knowing that is indigenous everywhere, from all corners of the world. And as for Dr. Benedict Lust, a more appropriate understanding of his role would be that he, along with a number of other white European men, probably women as well, though we don't hear about them, appropriated a number of indigenous and traditional medicines, brought them together and rebranded them under this umbrella term, naturopathic medicine, and then sold it to North America as something new. And I want to circle back to this metaphor that is more than metaphor, is literal. The metaphor that Elder Dave Courchene and that he brings in that story of carrying that torch for the Pan American Games. Him and 10 other indigenous brothers carrying that torch for so long, 500 miles. Only to have it taken by one white man for the victory lap in the stadium that's just full of privileged people, seeing that victory lap by the one white man lighting the torch, lighting the fire. And all of that labor of blood, sweat, and tears of love, labor of love, carrying that torch for so many miles by the indigenous peoples goes completely unnoticed and unrecognized. And the testament to the beauty of the indigenous knowledge systems and medicine that Dave Courchene carries is that he comes away from that experience, goes through his own healing journeys to receive his vision and prophecy, and the prophecy includes us all. He goes on to talk about bringing together the white, red, yellow, black, all 4 directions of the medicine wheel, all 4 directions of the peoples of the earth coming together in a vision that we will all be lighting that 8th fire together through the remembering and liberating of those indigenous knowledge systems that come from all 4 directions. And so I want to honor Elder Dave Courchene and Elder Malidoma Some today, and the indigenous knowledges that they carry from the lands and peoples of the land that they were born to, and that they have been carrying for time immemorial, as Malidoma says. Malidoma, born in Upper Volta, which is now known as Burkina Faso, West Africa, to the Dagara tribe, where he carried the medicine of his peoples and the knowledge of the healing power of nature that's been there since time immemorial. And Elder Dave Courchene, born in Sag King, Manitoba, Turtle Islands, the Anishinaabe First Nation, carrying the medicine of his peoples and the knowledge of the healing power of nature as they've understood it since time immemorial. And let us honor their sacrifice and journey as they and their brothers and sisters have carried those torches for so long, often unseen and unheard and unrecognized by the dominant culture. But still they kept those fires alive. And in their passing, they've passed that torch on to us, and we can hold it and carry it as children of the rainbow into the future, into lighting that 8th fire and dispelling the myth of the one white man. It's just an old myth that carries so much power still. But what I'm coming to know and feel and experience is how much more powerful the children of the rainbow are, and the four directions of the world are when we come together in our deeper indigenous knowledge systems. That includes us all. Miigwech, Dave, Courchene, Ashe, Malidoma, Some, may you both rest in peace, although I know you're still working. May you continue to rest and work in peace and in recognition of the lights that you each carry into this world and that you pass on to so many of us. You've passed them on to so many of us, and we are honored to keep those fires alive and ask for your continued guidance in the lighting of the next fire and ensuring that those who have been carrying the flame, who know that fire, who know how to be in community and in ritual and in the healing power of that fire, are seen, heard, and recognized for the medicine they are bringing. May it be so. Ashe, Miigwech.